Hey everyone, this is Chris Davis, and here's your totally on time, not 2 months late list of the community's top 10 games of 2015.
So there's actually a tie for the number 10 spot on our community games of 2015. The games after number 8 each received the same amount of votes. So Dying Light is a game I'm really glad the community chose, because it's one of those games where I feel like community plays a big role in it. Especially because you can play the entire game co-op with up to 3 other people. And I hope our community took this opportunity to get to know one of each other, so you can play this game with a friend, meet a new friend. And you know what, if you didn't get a chance to do that, thankfully the following is coming out soon, so you'll have another opportunity to meet someone from the community. We'll have a forum post for the game, you can go in there, post your tag, do some co-op with somebody. Because co-op was my favorite part about this game, is getting to, you're in a zombie apocalypse and you're getting to interact with other people. You're freaking out like, oh my god, I need help over here. There's zombies everywhere! Being able to come to your friend's aid was a lot of fun. And there also is a multiplayer element to this game, which I didn't dabble in too much. It's the Be the Zombie mode, where you can actually invade your friend's games as a zombie. And they have to, they're given an assignment and they have to accomplish that while you're trying to take them all out. I really enjoyed what I did get to play with that. If you want to know more about my opinions on Dying Light, be sure to check out my top 10 video from 2015. I go in a little more depth about it there. Once again, I'm really glad this game made our community's top 10 video, because it was a game I enjoyed so much. I'm glad to see our community enjoyed it as well.
Just making the list at number 10 is Ori and the Blind Forest. I'm proud of you guys. I was a little worried that this game wasn't going to get a lot of representation from our larger community, mostly because it came out earlier in the year, and it never came to any Sony platforms, but I'm glad it's here. One, the game is beautiful. I mean, that's, I guess, the one thing everyone can agree on. Also, the intro, it kind of made us cry because it was really sad. It was like a Miyazaki movie, and my God. Truth is, I kind of wish it ended on a similarly powerful note, but it didn't quite get there for me. But maybe the story resonated for some of you all. I think the thing that's unquestionably good at this game is the way it plays, the movement, the platforming, and the challenge. Like, who would have thought that a Metroidvania in 2016 would actually pose a healthy amount of challenge? And I think Ori and the Blind Forest did this really well. I think the reason this game is just so fun to play is because you eventually get a mechanic that lets you use enemy attacks to kind of bounce around the world and use them in platforming challenges, and when the game's at its best when you're kind of running at breakneck speed and you're not even thinking about it, you're just bouncing off of enemy projectiles and bouncing up an area. In later levels in the game, there's like not even like places to stand. You gotta propel yourself up through the area by just using enemy projectiles, and it's intense and it's exciting and it's always fun. So it really is not surprising why Ori and the Blind Forest is on this list. Good choice, community.
Coming in at number 8 is Batman Arkham Knight. Definitely a worthy entry in any top 10 list in 2015. I mean, come on. Rocksteady returns to the Batman franchise to deliver their magnum opus. Magnum opus. More of you guys really should have played Mad Max. Anyways, where was I? Yes, Arkham Knight. I said it on my own list, but I'll say it again. I consider this to be the best game in the Arkham series without question. It delivers the most accurate and all-encompassing portrayal of Batman to date, and puts to shame just about every other licensed game ever made. To be honest though, an argument could be made for any one of the core entries in the Arkham series being the best. They all deliver on the feeling of being the Dark Knight, and they somehow manage to deliver a wealth of cameos and fully realized villains from the universe without feeling overcrowded or unfocused, and that's pretty damn impressive. To me, the star of the show in Arkham Knight, aside from a certain evil clown of course, is the city of Gotham itself. It's such an incredible realization of the city that is so much fun to explore. Perhaps I was most impressed by how vertical the game was. Climbing to the top of Wayne Tower, a location that I must also mention is filled with a bevy of fun Easter eggs, was an experience that I felt like I had been waiting for forever, and it certainly delivered. Blasting through the streets of Gotham in the new Batmobile was also a major highlight for me. I'll be honest, I had some serious doubts when this was announced, but somehow they managed to pull it off. Not only is this car a fully realized, powerful machine, but they managed to incorporate it into so many different aspects of the game. Considering how much time and effort that must have taken to develop, it's no surprise that they squeezed every penny out of it in-game, and I for one was super pleased. One feature I actually forgot to mention in my own top 10 was the introduction of the dual character combat scenarios. A really cool idea and well executed, but one that ultimately felt a little bit like an afterthought, which was kind of a bummer. But there isn't much point in talking at length about how the game plays, because it does stick pretty close to its tried and true formula that we're all familiar with. What I will say is that Rocksteady ended their contribution to the Batman franchise on a really high note, and it's actually pretty exciting to think about what Warner Brothers might do next. So many talented developers could step up and iterate on Rocksteady's formula while taking us to the far corners of the Batman mythos. Let's not forget that we were really close to getting a steampunk Batman game called Gotham by Gaslight. Maybe we'll see that come to fruition. Or maybe someone will finally take a stab at Batman Beyond. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain, 2015 was a hell of a year for Batman.
I'm recording this fresh from finishing episode 5 of Tales from the Borderlands, and I definitely think that this Telltale series is an excellent choice for the community's top 10 games of the year. When Telltale announced that they would be working on a series for Game of Thrones and Borderlands, it seemed like kind of a no-brainer, which would be a better fit for their story-driven, consequence-heavy adventure game style, right? Yet here we are, and Tales from the Borderlands is on this list whilst Game of Thrones is nowhere to be seen. But looking back now, it makes kind of sense. As much as I, and I'm sure many of you guys, love Telltale's work on The Walking Dead, the grim tone of these adventure series, where you make difficult decisions in dire circumstances, is maybe starting to get a little old with their current formula. Borderlands has allowed Telltale to take a lighter and more comedic tone, and this game is genuinely laugh-out-loud funny. I'm really glad that everyone has been so vocal about how much they enjoyed this game, because personally, even with the great reviews that Tales from the Borderlands has received, I wouldn't have gone anywhere near it otherwise. I'm really not a fan of the main Borderlands series. I've never liked its story, its gameplay, its characters, or its humour, so you can see why Tales from the Borderlands was never that much of an exciting proposition for me. But now I'm kind of starting to regret not finishing it off before our end of year lists. It was pretty damn good, and it was a great choice for the number 7 spot.
Welcome, General Pollux.
See, it came in handy.
Hey everybody, Crispy here with your number 6 pick, Until Dawn. Honestly, I'm not at all surprised to see this game on this list. It just barely missed making my own personal list, but I do think Until Dawn is a fantastic game. I've been playing a lot of these point-and-click adventure-type games over the last year or so, and I have to say that Until Dawn is probably one of my favorites, which is especially surprising for me since I don't normally go in for the whole horror thing. Not that Until Dawn is a horror game in the most traditional sense. If anything, I think of it as being more of a suspense story, but you can tell that it is sort of supposed to be an homage to the classic genres of horror. The story itself covers everything from psychopathic slashers, to monsters, to ghosts, to pretty much everything. The game's story is a real roller coaster. I loved how suspenseful and unpredictable the whole thing was. I was on the edge of my seat pretty much the whole time. And I think a big reason for why I found the story so compelling was the cast. They did an excellent job performing their roles. The acting in this game was top-notch in my opinion. A really interesting cast of characters. I found myself fearing for the safety of characters who I didn't even particularly like as people, which to me is a real feat. Normally when I'm watching horror movies, I'm kind of just waiting for everybody to die. But here I felt like there were some real stakes in trying to keep everyone alive. The motion capture and animation work done in this game were fantastic. Some of the best facial animations I've seen ever, really, as far as I can recall. But I think the real triumph here is the butterfly effects system. Until Dawn, like most point-and-click adventure games, changes its story in reaction to the player's decisions. In most games, especially like Telltale games, these changes seem kind of inconsequential, the story ends up going the same place either way, and that may still be largely true for Until Dawn, but if nothing else, the game does a good job of feeling like your decisions and your actions have a certain sense of meaning, especially in that every character in the cast is in danger of dying, based purely on what you decide to do throughout the story. So while the story does end up going the same direction, no matter what, the number of survivors is completely up in the air. You can get everybody through the game, you can end up getting none of them through the game, or any combination therein between. And I gotta say, that did a lot for my engagement in this game and its story. I gotta say, I was really expecting to completely write this game off. I don't even remember why I decided to play it to begin with, because I was definitely expecting another Order 1886 sort of situation. But this was probably one of the biggest turnaround surprises for me. I'm really glad I played this game, and I'm really glad that you guys out in the community also played it and also enjoyed it. And it seems you guys really enjoyed it because you voted it in as number 6 on your top 10 list.
The number 5 community voted game of the year is Rocket League. It comes to no surprise to me that the community is just so in love with this game. We just had a community multiplayer night where tons of involvement and tons of people showed up to all play together, and it was very obvious that even new players that had never played before, like Nick, had no idea how to play, but managed to get into the groove just as easily as people that had played for months and months and months. This game is so good. It was so smart of Psyonix to release it as a free game for PlayStation Plus, and just the amount of fun that you have with every single time you just barely hit the ball in the right spot to make it go into the goal. You use your rocket boost to zoom across the map to just barely tap the ball before it goes into your goal. Everything you do in this game is so awesome, and you feel so satisfied every time you make any kind of crazy move. And those crazy moves, this game is not made so that only a few people get to make the crazy moves per game. This game, every time you play, you get to make some kind of awesome move that can go on to some highlight reel somewhere, because it's just so awesome. Yeah, highly recommend anyone who has never played Rocket League, if that's even something that is possible, to check it out, because it is super cool.
I felt really guilty for not including Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain on my own personal top 10 list, so I'm really glad the community has given me an opportunity to talk about it still. The truth is, this game just barely missed my list. It's not that I don't appreciate the damn near perfect mechanics with a beautiful open world, because I really do. I still spent upwards of 40 to 50 hours with this game in 2015. It's also not meant to imply that I'm not a fan of the franchise in general, because I certainly am. Metal Gear Solid is a franchise that I have always held in high regard. The original game is still to this day one of the most nostalgic PS1 experiences of my life. I still consider Metal Gear Solid 2 to be one of the most ambitious and exciting stealth action games that I've ever played. Kojima certainly iterated on the classic gameplay concepts in previous games, but to an insane degree in this game. Character movement has never been as fluid and streamlined as it is in The Phantom Pain. Hell, it's quite possibly one of the most enjoyable games to control ever. From sneaking around a base to climbing up walls to diving and rolling and shooting on a dime, it's a game that is absolutely magical to control. On top of that, expanding and navigating Mother Base is awe-inspiring, even if it is a bit shallower than I would have liked. Of course, I can't forget to mention the Fulton recovery system, which is an inspired mechanic in the series, despite my initial skepticism, that is used and exaggerated to a hilarious degree. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity to get a few things off my chest, so please don't panic. What didn't quite land for me in this game, and a lot of people I assume, was the mess of a story that really didn't make much sense, even for Metal Gear, and that's saying something. Not that the moment-to-moment unfolding of that story wasn't enjoyable, because it definitely was. It just didn't stack up to even the weakest story the series had to offer previously. It wouldn't have been so bad if the supporting cast wasn't so completely forgettable. Quiet is probably the only memorable character to speak of, and even she comes with her own baggage that many might use to question her value to the series. The decision to hand-in-hand snub David Hayter and the potential for a fully realized portrayal of Snake was an unfortunate way to end the series. Not that I don't like Kiefer Sutherland, because I really do, but I can't imagine what it would have cost to have him record all the dialogue for a game like Metal Gear Solid 4, for example. On top of that, the world itself just didn't leave an impression in this game. It's beautiful, but it's a shame considering that just about every other game in the franchise featured an unforgettable setting or iconic location. Shadow Moses, Big Shell, etc., etc. Now that I've covered the elephant in the room, enough cannot be said about Kojima's trademark wackiness and attention to detail. The game is absolutely dripping with it, and let's be clear, Kojima's contributions to this game are substantial enough to overshadow some of the more unfortunate sentiments that I may have expressed. It's an exciting game and a franchise that for all intents and purposes is riding off into the sunset. It may not be the ending we deserved, but it's a prime example of what the medium is capable of and well deserving of the number 4 spot on the community's top 10 in 2015.
The Witcher 3 was a game long anticipated by both us and you, and so I find it to be absolutely no surprise that the community chose it as their number 3 pick of 2015. And really, what's not to love about the penultimate chapter in the gaming saga of Geralt of Rivia? Turns out, very little. While many try it, it's a rare occasion in which an RPG is able to successfully combine a world of epic scale with a strong storyline and enticing gameplay. Usually you have to pick 2 out of the 3. Somehow, and possibly out of sheer will or perhaps sorcery, CD Projekt Red was able to combine the world scale of The Witcher 1, the intriguing narrative of The Witcher 2, and topped up with a far superior combat system to make the final entry in the series a rather fantastic one. Playing as Geralt of Rivia as you traverse the war-torn regions of the Northern Kingdoms, searching for your adopted daughter while fending off otherworldly raids, was an epic journey that I don't think anyone could completely speak ill of. Equally as entertaining were the monster contracts, allowing the player the opportunity to really feel like a true Witcher, and interconnecting many of these hunts within a twisting, often tragic series of stories. There's nothing more that needs to be said here. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is an RPG that gripped us all when it arrived, and continued to do so for months after, so it's more than worthy of being selected as one of the best games of 2015.
May ye be fruitful and get to work.
Just missing the number 1 spot, and I'm a little surprised. I kind of expected it to be the number 1 game, but that's Bloodborne. Yeah, Bloodborne. And don't get mad that I'm the one talking about Bloodborne because I didn't have it on my top 10 list. I did really, really enjoy Bloodborne in 2015. It's just not my favorite Souls game. You know, I like shields, I like Estus Flask, yada, yada, yada. The truth is, Bloodborne is a pretty remarkable game. I like that it plays a lot faster than, you know, a Dark Souls game, but, you know, still has that same kind of strategic back and forth. The gun concept is pretty cool. I know some people got really good at that. The idea of you know, countering an enemy or stunning them from like really far away is kind of exciting. It played really well. It's probably the best playing Souls games. The standout feature of this game, though, is the personality that exists in almost every single weapon in this game. The ability to kind of swap weapon styles on the fly by transforming your weapon in a cool way. I mean, that kind of existed in the previous games. You just sort of like one hand or two hand, but this is just a really cool fucking way to do it. Also, I really liked how the game kind of went back to a world structure that was a little bit more like Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 2 gets a lot of crap. I actually really like that game, like some of the improvements that it has. But the one thing I can agree with, you know, the Souls community with, is that it was a little too spread out. You did really have to kind of fast travel to get around. It wasn't all interconnected and entwined like that first Dark Souls game is, or, you know, some of the best areas in Demon Souls. But Bloodborne kind of went back to that, you know, that intertwined, shortcut-heavy areas where you kind of really got to know them like the back of your hand because you backtracked in them in a lot of smart ways. And I'm really glad that Bloodborne kind of brought that back. I just hope going forward, whether it be Dark Souls 3 or Bloodborne 2 or whatever, that the Souls developers really kind of take the best from both worlds. You know, keep the speed and the combat and maybe some of the more creative weapon styles of Bloodborne, but merge them with the deeper RPG elements, the quality loot, the build heavy meta stuff of the Souls games, and really kind of make the ultimate Souls game experience. But truth is, Bloodborne on its own, despite the future, despite the past, it really does just stand above so many other games with its brilliant level design, its brilliant encounter design. I mean, god damn it, it doesn't matter what they do with this series. These games are always going to be on the fucking top because it's just better than other stuff out there, and that's why it's number 2. And what the hell is number 1?
And the number 1 game of 2015 as chosen by the community is Fallout 4. I'm actually a little surprised by this, just from the sheer amount of negative feedback that kind of surrounded this game once it finally released, of just how similar it was to previous games in the series. Because Fallout never changes. But if you've seen my top 10, you'll know that I also really love this game. Even though I will agree not enough has changed since Fallout 3 in New Vegas, I still think this game stands alone as a great experience in the Fallout universe. Honestly, my biggest issue with this game surrounds the settlements. Now, the settlements are something I do enjoy, but the taking care of your settlements can be frustrating in that, Preston Garvey will constantly be giving you the same missions over and over again, that, oh, this settlement needs help from this, and they're very cookie cutter, and they just get repetitive and old after a while. But what doesn't get old is when you constantly are stumbling across new things in this world to find. Even after beating the game, I'm still finding new characters and places that I just somehow missed in my entire playthrough of the game. Early on in the game, when I would run into a legendary creature, I would be, oh crap, it's a legendary. But now I'm like, oh great, a legendary, what item is it going to drop? What cool new weapon or gear am I going to find from it? Is it going to be a shotgun that does double damage, or a fat man that has infinite ammo? I still haven't found that one. But man, if I did, I would blow up the whole goddamn world. I hope for those of you who haven't given Fallout 4 a chance yet, that maybe this video will sway your mind and you'll check it out. Grab a few bottle caps, step into a suit of power armor, and just have fun exploring the Commonwealth.